Hey guys, this is Allison from Allykatkreations. How are you? Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. That helps me out. And I could use a lot of help right now. A lot. So, the law of one. It's a lot to go back and recap, but I'm going to do my best in my own words so that we don't lose necessarily what's going on. But I did cherry pick a few things that I wrote notes on so that we have a coherent discussion. On it. So I'm taking the video, the parallels of past to present, because again, I have a feeling that I'm redoing these, not just to keep things kosher on my my page, but also I think recapping this information might help those who just found me understand a little bit better. So not all is lost. Trying to look at the positive side of things right now instead of the negative. Oh, that's a vein. Thought there was like makeup. So before I do begin, I do want to say a few things because I recapped I said a lot in the beginning of the Awaspe read that I did earlier. I'm freezing, FYI. It's still cold here. It's freaking almost May, and it's cold. Like, I'm okay with like prepping for cold all year round. Like, that's chill. But, you know, I just run cold. It's like 50 degrees, which isn't not necessarily a terrible thing, but I run really cold. So I need a fireplace and I don't have one. So hence the sweater. I know a lot of people don't watch the Awaspe, so I'll recap really quickly. I listened to a few podcasts tonight. I don't listen to as many as I used to, because I really want to focus on getting this information out, like now that I have to take videos down. So I have to go back and like juxtapose the videos to the information and then make sure I'm saying it correctly, not trying to lose much meaning. And so I kind of caught up tonight on some of the stuff. From what I'm feeling intuitively and from what I am like, weighing in and out, like I discern my information and I have to hear it from multiple sources for me to even like grasp the concept. And then I'll, when I meditate, I usually ask, what should I be doing? Should I not be doing? And intuitively, I'm feeling that there is going to be some sort of disruption to all of us again when it comes to commodities, food, toilet paper, stuff of that nature. And it's not necessarily because, there was food plants on fire. There was a reason for that, and a real good one. If you only knew what they put in the meat, you should look into McDonald's. Okay, I don't want to say that too, but that is one of the reasons why. And the is a scapegoat to making you think these things are going down. And that's not to say to not be careful. So as always, I've always said to, just on my social media, please stock up on food. People thought I was crazy. But now people are thanking me like, oh, I got those kits. Thank you so much. Because now I don't have to worry if things are not as stocked as they usually are in the supermarkets. So just be mindful what to stock up on. Look at the US debt clock under the credit card debt. It's going in reverse. So if anybody happens to have some debt wiped out that you can show, like, obviously I don't want your information, but like you could prove it. That'd be sweet to find out. I know in my luck, I won't see that. And, yes, I'm in debt because I have to live somehow. But, I'm rather really bad off. And not because I want to be, and not because, I'm a frivolous person. No, if I was, you would see me in Louis Vuitton and Chanel and have a nicer car than one that I can't fix. Anywho, just look out for those things. Make sure you have means of communication. I have a landline that I have to pay a lot of money on. And that's just because if things do go out, like I have cell phone issues. I'm not getting my messages when I should be getting them. They're not instantaneous. I don't know if they're doing a lot to the towers or not, but that's the excuse I get from my carrier. It's not my phone because it works. So just be prepared. The unknown is still unknown, and each day is a chess move being placed by two players, one of the positive and one of the negative polarity. So each one that is played will determine what goes on each day. It's 5D chess. So we need to be mindful of certain moves and certain things that are happening, but you could tell if you look at the app where you see all the boats, excuse me, if you see all the boats in the harbor by Shanghai that are not in port unloading goods, and if you're seeing them all around different parts of the world, they're all out in the middle of, they're all docked, anchored. So just be aware that you might see stuff now, but you might not see it next month. And I don't think that's going to be a forever thing, but just be prepared. That's all I'm trying to say. I care about all of you, and some of you don't follow the movement that I do, and that's absolutely fine. I'm not asking you to, but just be aware that those are some things that you need to keep your eyes on. And also your kitties and your doggos and any other animal that you have that needs specialized food. If you have it within you to meet in the means that you have, grab it up. I have to figure out how I'm going to get cat litter. Fun times. So the law of one, book one, parallels of past to present. What's Ra's purpose? He noted we are one, also that is nature and our purpose. All that is its nature and our purpose. We're all one and the same. That's my own terms of saying that. He adds he's been on the planet, which was a long time in the past. with teaching and giving the law of one with unity of singleness to the earth humans, and giving the law of one with the understanding of the mission. So he came here at a time when man, us humans, were just developing in society again. So actually this parallels really well with a wasp that I just read today. Literally, it parallels this, because in a wasp, Thothma, right? Pyramids, Egypt. This is where Ra presented himself, and I'll go later on what he presented himself. But he came down because things were distorted. Because we read in Awaspe that it's a false Osiris, and Baal, we should know who Baal is, and Azeroth. And he came to teach unity, oneness, love, light. He came to teach and to give knowledge and to help form the pyramids. Now we can argue this, absolutely could be argued about who and what made the pyramids. Awaspi says they had a whole, I read the whole chapter on all this kind of crazy shit. I don't tend to believe that version. I do, however, believe in the Ra version. I'll get into that in a minute. So he came and he left because things got his teaching, and he comes from a social memory complex. So he's an individualized entity, but they all share, like I keep explaining, this social memory complex stuff. We're all individualized, but we're all one. We're a part and unity of an infinite intelligence. So we can hunker in telethought, telepathy. If we need something, we grab it out of the ether from somebody else who has the knowledge. If you already are not encompassing it, it's like an instant knowledge gateway. And when he was teaching this law of one to the humans back then, they distorted his teachings. And there was and it doesn't say that within this, the channelings that he did. Later on it will, but I'm just gonna ruin it anyway because I already read it. It was infiltrated by the negative polarity, by ego, by people taking things out of context and then using things for self-advantage instead of a humanitarian advantage. Again, we have to realize and understand what unity really means. And yes, you need to have a cup full for yourself. No one argues that. They don't even argue that. You need to help and heal and be your ultimate authentic self. At the same time, you can't denote and denounce humanity in and around you because you're a part of them. You mirror them. You were once them to an extent. So he then was asked about Egypt and noted that he comes from a social memory complex and made contact in the times of old. But others in the social memory complex, the same one he was, served South America, those lost cities. Can anyone think who you think had pyramids and all the higher-ended thinking and intelligent artifacts? Mayans, Incas, most likely the Aztecs as well. if you compare their statues with Egyptian statues, there isn't much variation, a little bits here and there, but boy, they all look damn similar. How is that so when at that time they weren't traversing the oceans? Like, it wasn't Viking era where, you know, they had the stone and they went by the sun to determine what direction they were going into. They didn't have that technology back then, or they weren't aware of it, but these guys had their thought formed spaceships or Merkabas. They just whispered, there they are. The people of those time distorted the message of the law of one with distortions. Very interesting. But again, it comes into the free will and the ego and greed, because back then, especially pharaohs, and there was a caste system. I mean, even in the last bay, everybody has a place, and it doesn't matter. You are either in or you're out. And is it serving us well today? Could someone answer me that? Is it serving us well today? No. If you go look at that clock, it's really interesting with the statistics that it has. Just to see how many people in the United States are unemployed or under the poverty line. It's really bad. It is super bad. And not that I've never looked at that site before, because I have many times, but putting it in perspective, when I was reading, you know, like going back and rereading and looking at notes, we've been strung along on this line of service to self, greed, which is a sin, gluttony. And not to say that, you know, I'm going to be really out forth with everybody. Both my parents were morbidly obese, especially my mother. She was huge. When I say huge, like 5'2", 300 pounds plus at times. My father was a bit taller, and he was almost 300 pounds. So I'm not here to just, I loved my parents, and their weight never mattered to me, but I didn't love them any less, and I don't project a body type on anybody. It's not my thing. So I don't want people taking me that in that way. You could be thin and gluttonous. There's a reason why that happened. Just mind you. The distortions that were placed upon us in our modern day, we all think is good is actually bad. And now more people are understanding the law of one because it's talked about more frequently, and it can be compared with other books and other sources of information that you can connect a lot of this work with other sources. And we do have to have a balance of polarity. We have to know ourselves inside and out, both positive and negative sides, and then balance that shit out. But I'll get into that. I'm jumping ahead, but it all fits in. So Ra then states the universe is in fact infinite. that we have no end to self, understanding, seeking, and our perceptions. Says the infinite creator, there is only unity. Explains through the example of color from light hitting a crystal, showing the spectrum. So what he's talking about is it's like the Pink Floyd cover, right? You have the light spectrum from the sun hitting the crystal, and then it bursts out with Roy G. Biv happening and all the other colors in between that are shooting out, and it's unifying each other. It's coming together, whereas it's coming as a stream of light. And that's the idea that he wants to take away, how we unify with Creator, is that light hitting that crystal and then exploding, and that would be our unity with it. And that's what I'm taking, at least. On the alien agenda, great agenda, I very shortly played an interview that happened in a base somewhere in America with a future part of an alien like us in the future. I recommend you go finding that video. It's interesting. Whether you want to believe it's fake or not, I believe it's real. And for the fact that the questioner in that video, in the same interesting way that Ra and throughout the series, we as a third dimensional being cannot comprehend every aspect of what we want to talk about, because it's beyond our comprehension because of the limitations of our brain. And the capacity of our brain is now growing, thank goodness, but we're still not there yet. And in the alien EBE, I don't know if it was an EBE, but was stressing that point, like we just can't comprehend existence because we're only seeing it in a 3D perspective in a material world where there's an infinite amount of universes. Some can be habitable, some can't, but the life that is out there, and again with the flat earth, the toy world earth, the globe earth, it doesn't matter because there is space beyond space, and there is dimensions and densities. And I'll go into that a little bit later and describe that more with when he talks about where he's from. He states there is no right and wrong. Things are distorted. The unity of that of thought binds all things. You are light, love, love light, and are. You are unity and infinity. That is the law of one. In a nutshell. How simple is that? You are light, you are love. And you express that in your vibrational frequencies and octaves that are in your biofield you're not even able to see and are aware of yet. Some people are. That's your aura, your biofield, your auric field, your chakra system. But we are all one. Ross states that the social memory complex is a part of the Confederation. So Ra is part of the Confederation, which to me amounts to the good guys. I'll just leave it there. 11,000 years ago. The sort. So he was, the social memory complex he belongs to was sought out between two cultures in service to the one creator. He wanted to teach us through them crystal healing and pyramids that were created. So he basically came here because we were a developing culture as humans, to bring crystal technology, crystal healing, and the technology of the pyramids, which back then was electrical. Although it's not stated in this, it's pretty much what it was used for. He was also in connection to the 8th dynasty to contact the pharaohs that were alive at that time, which one was Amun or Aten. Ra goes into crystal healing, that it comes into the spiritual body, that help distorts from spirit to mind, which in turn balances the being. The crystals are charged with and through purified channels. To use crystals, they must present a structure that holds frequencies and vibrations that aid the flow of the energy to come through. So I don't have my obelisk ones, but just for example, this is my runic one. This wouldn't be this crystal, it'd be a clear quartz, and the energy would have to stream in flow to burst out and to give its energy. I don't know if you could see that well. Sorry about my nail polish. I know I have to paint my nails. I know. So it can't just be any crystal and gem. And yes, as somebody who has a humongous, you have no idea, crystal affinity, love and passion for crystals and gems, they have to be a certain frequency and vibration. And even like most people today can't do what they did back then, because the crystals back then had upgraded in intelligent infinity knowledge, and they were able to harmonize those crystals with a lot of their thoughts. We can touch a gem and, imagine and put in our intentions to each gem, which you should be doing. By the way, if you do collect gems, holding it and putting intentions into it based on what the gem is used for. There's some grounding gems, there's some healing gems, there's ones for love, there's ones for anxiety. They all have a different purpose and serve different purposes. But there are some that you can hold and that it amplifies all. So you want to put your intention into that so it goes out in the room, right? So with these crystals came light, came energy. Now he mentions the pyramids were built with thought and telethought, with sound frequencies and vibrations. The stones are alive. And if you go into Dolores Cannon's work, she talks about that, like, first density, you're either with source or you become the wind, you're the fire, you're the air. You are the stone, you are the tree, you are the dirt. You inhabited consciously that very highly dense material. And then through millions of years of experiencing what a rock is, you then become the ant or the animal, what have you. I thought that was going to be a sneeze and it was a yawn. Sorry, guys. So stones are alive because it's consciousness. This is why they put fluoride in the water to calcify your brain. So it diminishes that third eye. The pyramids were to help purify and heal those who wanted to go along with the law of one. Pyramids were charged with charged crystals to balance the incoming energies. And then he talks about the shapes, the sacred geometry shapes that we know, the diamond, the triangle, and how those forms were measurements and calculations to the pyramids that we see in Egypt. Not only in Egypt, he's talking about what he did, but in other places as well. It streams for energy for the mind, body, spirit complexes and frequency, which has various effects on us. Through time, given the polarities, this stuff been distorted. You know, all things that are supposed to be used for good gets chopped for the evil. But I also take into mind the psionics, how you can use certain frequencies and vibrations of sound. And back then, it took a lot of humans to learn the same pitch and noise to levitate things off the ground. And I believe that that's how a lot of this work got done. So I definitely believe that back then, the higher entities that came, like Ra, had the psionic ability, the telethought, and the point of the pyramids was to heal those that were interested in the law of one, to heal, to be able to heal others, to use the crystals for the betterment of humanity. And that's all technology. And back then that would make sense. That would be like our computer, but not. And that certain, you know, certain stones had certain frequencies. So they talk about the capstone on top of the pyramid and what that did, and the metals and other things that were inside. It all had a purpose. So the next take that I got off of the book that I think is very important for the time and now is that Ra isn't incarnate at this point in time, and that's in 1981 standards. So how long ago was 1981? 40 years ago plus. The law of one is healing occurs when we realize within ourselves that there is no imperfection, no disharmony, also free will in play. So don't just heal without consent. So when we are healing, we are having to know that we are not imperfect, that we are perfect, that we have to be in harmony. There is no disharmony within ourselves, and that we do have the free will. But if we want to heal other people, like when Yeshua went around, people asked, which gave implied consent to heal. And that person has to be opened for that healing. The polarity of the dimension we inhabit, which is third dimension, must be internalized, finding balance of both positive and negative aspects of oneself. Realizing all the biases, the full scope of the expansion of mind, balancing the spirit and the body. So it's like making a list of pros and cons that you are and accepting all of them. And in each season, in all honesty though, each of us during our lifetime go through a lot of cycles and a lot of seasons, right? When you're younger, you're not worried about the bills, you're, learning how to live in this world. You are given and chose the experience you were experiencing, whether it be positive or negative, for soul growth. Each season of your life, your dynamic and your maturity changes. The way you think does change. It does. You still keep a lot of things to your heart, but things do morph and mature as you get older. The perspective of living, the things and the way you see the world changes because of how you experience it. And the things that shape you are the catalysts that you go through in your life. Just a really quick example. I lost my father when I was 22 years old, and I lost my mother at 34. And a lot of people don't realize that's not easy to cope with, but a lot of people ask, how do you cope with it? Knowing that you won't have a parent to walk you down the aisle if you ever choose to get married, or you don't have parents to fall back on and just to have a family. When they passed away, how did you react? And for both of them, I did cry it out because it sucks. But I was at their funerals, I was smiling and I was happy because one, my father had a very, very vicious disease called scleroderma. He was in pain. There was no quality of life. I smiled and I was happy that he passed on so that he could be out of pain. For my mother, it was very similar. She was a victim to her own body and her own self and her habits. I was happy that I knew she moved on, and I was happy that she didn't stay because she would have been earthbound and that would have been bad. But I was happy. What made me upset, which a lot of people find out the hard way, is who is really going to be there for you to help you pick up the pieces of a shattered life. It is not easy losing somebody, but when you understand that that person really isn't lost, they're just transformed. Yes, they're not in the physical, but they are inhabiting the energetic body. They are consciously aware of you at all times. They watch you. They put things in your path to help you. Yes, they're here. But you always want to fall on other people to help you and guide you during your physical incarnation. And I had to find out the hard way with both of my parents' passings, who was really going to be in my life and who wasn't. And that's really not easy either, to find out that you were a person that went out of the way for other people. And then when you needed that help and love, that it wasn't there. So that's, I have to forgive those people because a lot of people just don't react to death the way I do. But I have to forgive them for showing me that they weren't for my life, that they had to move on. I had to move them on. So we have to take things into a balance. So, you know, a lot of people look at themselves and they have like, well, I'm ugly or I'm pretty or I hate. Guys, this is my natural hair color. Okay, not from birth. I had dark black hair. Do you know how hard it was for me to make this transformation happen? It was not easy. I could never envision myself with this untouched, not dyed, different colors. I mean, my shampoo does shine out a little bit, gives it like a hue, but like, I haven't cut my hair in a long time either. I just turned 39. I've had my hair like this over 8 to 9 years. My grays were going in since I was 17. Genetics, stress, who knows? But it doesn't matter if I stress now because it's coming out gray. But I had to balance out that insecurity within myself and say, I have to accept this because either I keep dyeing my hair really dark and then you see this within a week or two and having to keep spending money I didn't have to upkeep my hair, or I'm just going to let it grow out and just let it be the way it is. And that was very hard for me, especially when you're younger. You know, and then it became a trend after the fact. So even then, silver foxes out there, let it go. Embrace who you are. I have to embrace the fact that my teeth are gone, that I want them out. It's a very big con for me. I'm very conscious of my mouth. I don't like to eat in front of other people either because my teeth tend to shift and they fall out. It's gross. But I have to accept the fact that that's just the way the cards fell and accept it and forgive it. So you guys need to balance it. I'm just giving you my own personal take on those things. You know, see how it fits in your life. It could be body, it could be how you think. You know, people transform themselves when you start picking up on the patterns in which you want to change, but you're not consciously aware of it all the time. You know, when you're speaking to somebody and you're just in the flow, and then something within you stops and you catch what you just said and you're like, holy shit. No, I got to retract that because that's not healthy. When you become aware, you can stop the negative behavior, but you have to be aware of it. So that's the balance that you have to start being aware of. It's not to say to accept it, it's to forgive it and move on and do better. But know that it's there and it's a part of you and it's not going to change unless you do something about it. So, and your biases are a part of you because that's who you are. That's what you were taught and born in, sometimes instinctualized. Everybody has a bias. It is what it is. It's up to you whether you're expressing that bias or not outwardly. And sometimes it takes decades for people to work on their individual biases. So again, it's all a learning experience and there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, everybody comes to their own realizations on things at different times in their lives. And we have to permit that and allow it. Ra goes into the planet he inhabits, which is Venus, but not the density we are told now. He came from the 5th and 6th dimension where growing and learning and teaching is inhabitable, I guess, in Venus. And again, I really stick with the law of one on a lot of topics because it makes sense to me on a quantum physics level, on a multidimensional level, on a mathematical level, sacred geometry, the whole 9 yards. It hits me in spots. They're conceiving it through words, but their words hold a lot of weight, especially with the densities. So when people are asked to ask their guides or higher realms, is there a flat earth or is it a sphere? The answer never comes out yes or no on either one of them, because it's how you personally perceive it. There is no right or wrong. It depends what vibrational octave and frequency you are inhabiting at that time in space, third dimensional space. He does say that we are in fourth dimension. And this was back in 1981. So we were just moving in to fourth density then. The problem is we are in between the sub-octaves of 3 and 4. We go back and forth. We're yo-yoing up and down. And it depends on your mind frame and your consciousness level, where you stand on the frequency scale. That's why I'm always saying, raise your vibes. But we don't always stand there because, you know, we have hormones. We're in traffic and someone just cut you off and they almost hit your car and you just want to get out. You know, it makes you angry. And you can't be passive all the time either and be the nice guy, because then you get walked all over. I'm usually that passive happy person where everybody walks all over because I'm too nice. But I'm from New York and I'm so take me or leave me. I think I know why I was brought up here and adopted, because I might be a little bit of everything, but I hurt. So I'm saying that all to say that when we view the universe that we can see outside of our windows, we might not be seeing what's truly out there because we're only seeing it from a third dimensional, third density perspective. And even if we are vibrating on the fourth dimension, in the fourth dimension on the fourth density, we still don't see everything from the fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth level of densities that inhabit a lot of these places, planets, things that we see in the sky might be different to someone else who could see through the densities and see higher elements of things. If we, even though we've been indoctrinated by the deceiver NASA, look that name up in Hebrew, and then go look to see who formed that corporation. Not pretty people. Then you would be aware of the fact that Venus is supposedly a gaseous planet really close to the sun, that there could be no inhabitants, which is false. Where did Thor come from? Venus, he's a Venusian. So is Ra. But Ra's not on the same density as Thor. So Ra experiences Venus in a different density and different dimension than Thor. So when the medium told me about the interdimensional beings that come through my portal in my closet, and do I see them, that they come and visit me, I don't see them because I'm not vibrating at the frequency of which they are coming from. I might feel them. You know, maybe the temperature is really cold in my house compared to being outside because they're around. We live in a multidimensional universe. A lot of these things are now, we just don't have the right mathematics. The mathematics is there, but it's not being used properly, in my opinion. And a lot of it's distorted. But eventually there will be the mathematics to prove the multidimensionality of this plane of existence, and that there are many things that are not on our vibration we cannot see with our naked eye, but still yet exists. Schopenhauer made a quote about that. Like Bigfoot. And I'll go into, and one of my other episodes that I'm going to have to redo is about the Bigfoot and the 4D thing. Right? Time traveling. Makes sense. So how did the, like, Ra, right? He said he came to Earth to teach the law of one. How did he appear? And I believe he used a thought form of intelligent infinity, the particle of light. And the council allowed this experiment to take place for the growing of humanity. And that council was on the 8th dimensional octave of Saturn. Now, what do you mean by thought form? The reptilians are shapeshifters. Okay. They play with the matrix and our minds. You don't need to believe in that, but I'm trying to explain how, in the simplest ways that I can, what a thought form is. So in the physics of things, you project an image onto a vehicle, aka avatar. And through those vibrations, you can morph into anything that you want to project. So the easiest way I can explain that is through the reptilian shape shifting, or any shapeshifters. Like if you watch the movie with the Lyrans, the Lycan, that movie with Underworld, and how they went from human form to a werewolf or other species. It's very similar to that, where they're projecting themselves as something else. So Ra doesn't explain what he projects himself as a thought form is, but there are many rumors. And again, we don't know which Ra, because Ra is the sun god. You know, the bird, think of it as that, but I don't know, he doesn't go into description of what thought form he presented himself as. But he does. He was a thought form. And then I'm going to leave you with this last bit, because it deals with what's happening now. And this all really is about what's happening now. Because even if Ra isn't like coming here, he's channeling through Carla Ruckert. And a lot of people are channeling social memory complexes alike. And they're all coming up with either very different information, distorted information, or just about what makes it look and sound correct. And how would you know that is when the common topic and theme are all matching in similar ways to each other. They're just being said differently. And you have to resonate with those messages. If you don't, then you move on. It doesn't make it wrong or right, because like the law of one states, there is no wrong and right, because we're all individualized as we are right now. We're all individualizing this world, the material world. And we are all given each other catalysts for growth. So if I see something one way, someone might see it another. Does that make me wrong or them wrong? No, we just don't see it the same way. But eventually the truth does come out. No one knows if they're right or wrong until you actually physically die. And even then, the people who have near-death experiences, they all have very similar stories, but they're different because each of them are experiencing what piece of heaven they were in. So the harvest, each of us, the harvest. Go into the octaves of vibration and frequency. We go through each light love as the light grows. One stops when it's too intense, and that is what determines the density that you are ascending into. And that's even through death. So think about, visualize yourself dying, that you're going through the tunnel, and then you see the light. But that light is a never-ending infinity of light. But at some point, it keeps getting brighter and brighter and brighter as you're going through this tunnel. And eventually, it is so extreme for yourself, your consciousness to handle. You can't take it anymore. You're completely done. You are going to implode on yourself in consciousness if you go any further from this light. And that point in which you stop determines what density your soul is able to handle, because each density holds different learning and teachings, holds a different vibration and frequency that not all souls can maintain in. That's why no one should judge each other on a low vibration or high vibration, because everybody will get there eventually. It's on your own timing. So there's no right or wrong. Everybody has their own individual timing, because each soul signs or makes an arrangement for things that happen in their life. And if you feel that you didn't complete, or you want another round to go, you'll be granted that because you said it. So the cycles for harvest is, one cycle is every 25,000 years. The ones taken for harvest can be taken after 3 major cycles. That has to be major, okay. 76,000 years. The planet inhabited also changes its density, which is happening now. The lower vibrational energy beings cease to move up in density, can no longer stay on the planet that is also moving up and shifting up in density, because they're frequently not going to be a match vibrationally. Just not going to happen. It's not going to work out. Ra claims we are in the 4th dimension vibration. We are at the end of the transitional period. Now that was back, that statement right there was made in 1981. So one can only speculate what happened that now we're 40 years and not 30 for when the transitional period should have already been. 40 years. just about, give or take a year or two, 3 years, give or take. Okay. They were saying we were in that transitional period and that it would take about 30 years. And now we're at 10 years past that we should have already shifted fully into fourth density, fourth dimension. There was some monkey wrenches thrown into the mix in our universe because of the negative polarity, because of technology that was hidden from humanity, that shifted things, that shifted timelines. Why is there a Mandela effect? Why do some of us remember things way differently than they occurred? I make the example of the Shazam movie, of the things in the movies that we thought we heard that never existed, or did they? And we shifted into another reality. Dolores Cannon, but not only her, states that you as a being continuously always make choices. And the major choice not taken is actualized and expressed in another dimension and universe. That your other soul, we're a fractal of everything. So we have a higher self, we have our over self, that we are playing out the choice that we didn't take in another reality. That if I didn't take this route in this conscious life that I'm here talking to you right now, I could have already been married and having children, and that would have been the major life moves that I wanted to make a few years ago. But unfortunately, my higher self had other plans. But that reality still could exist. My parents could still be alive. And you can apply that to yourselves. We're at the cusp of this transformation. We're at this cusp of the evil, the negative polarity, being sent back to source. And again, they're catalysts in our lives. So we are all one. We're all a part of them. We've played the villain many of our lives. We were the murderers. We were the healers. We were the moms. We were the fathers. We were everything before we came into this life that we chose for ourselves. And a lot of truths are going to start coming out more and more to the atrocities that some of these people have done. And the agendas that were hidden from us will come out a little bit later. But I feel that we were halted from this big expanse of a harvest because many of us are taking our physical bodies with us. And that has yet never happened before in human events, ever. This is an experiment that we live in. And we're in the experiment now. That's why no one can be 100% sure with ascension symptoms and solar flares and all these crazy things that are happening in our world, no one has a definitive answer because no one has gone through this before, not even the beings upstairs that are very highly more intelligent, expansive knowledge beyond the capacity of the scope of our minds. That's why a lot of them, you see the images, they have huge heads. Well, that's because their brain capacity is like huge. They don't even know. We've never done this before. And we're in this grand experiment together. And we need to start expressing that, as Ross states in the very beginning of the book, the law of one, love, light, unity. Eventually starting to form a social memory complex, and there's many complexes. So you could be a part of the philosophy group, someone else could be a part of the mathematical group, and that could be the science group. Like there's different social memory complexes. That's why they're asking you to find your tribe, the people that you resonate with, the people that you are connecting with, the people that spark something within your soul. And yeah, you don't need to know them personally. It's another point of why I made this channel, is to find like-minded people of myself. Yeah, you can have difference of opinion and you can have difference of backgrounds. It doesn't matter. You're human and we all going to think differently. But the content that is expressed is of a like that you're interested in, that it gets you excited, that it gets you thinking outside of the box thinking, the critical thinking that one needs to move up consciously. And that's why we all need to be finding each other, looking in different communities. You could be a part of a hundred of them. It doesn't matter. When you find your people and when you resonate with somebody and their message, you're going to become a part of that conversation, because you're going to spread that knowledge onto other people and it's going to become your own, because then you'll be able to express it in your own words, but it has the same tone and vibrational meaning. That's the feedback loop. That's the social memory complex starting to form itself. When all people get information and start disseminating it in your own words, in your own way, but it all comes back to the one source. And it all has the same message, even though you're saying it in different terms and words, you are expressing the same love and light. And that's really what's needing to happen. That's how we form that. That's how we evolve. We are evolving. We get to be evolving. And we get to be the teachers for the children who will over supersede us by tenfold. But it's an honor to serve that, because we were once those children in a different lifetime. We were the ones that formed and made civilizations. Many of us have traversed a lot of different places before we came here. We were once those kids too. Now it's our honor to do that job for the upcoming generations to come, is to seed. What do we want to leave our kids? What do we want to leave society with? The world can't continue going on the way it is now. That's for sure. Looking at what I looked at today, it's disgusting. We were all entrapped, unbeknownst to us, into a system that was never for us. It was against us. It enslaved us. it made us slaves. All of us, not just one race. If you look back in what we want to consider history, which is all fake and fraudulent to a lot of an extent, there's different versions of the truth. And a lot of the versions that we know about are false. And that's going to be some very hard things to swallow too. Understand we have all been slaves, no matter what race you are. And yes, listen, I know firsthand the deceptive ways that were used against specific majorities of people that they demonized and segregated so they could be held back even more. That's without a doubt. That's absolutely correct. That has gone on in this country and other countries. That's not to take away from anybody's ancestral differences. Not trying to disrespect anybody, because trust me, if we go back in time with my last name and go back, and then if I want to go back to my biological roots, people of Ireland were slaves too. Everybody at some point in some form or fashion were a slave. We, in the modern times, don't see it that way, but we are enslaved to the debt system. Technically, we shouldn't even be paying taxes at all. And if there is taxes, it should be on not what we pay for. Our electric and our the needs to stay alive should be free. So I know that was nothing like reading out of the book, but in context to the Law of One, the very beginning of book 1 and of the series of 5 books, Ra tells us a lot. And it's a lot to take in. It might not seem that way, but it's a lot of thinking. It's a lot of going within yourself and asking yourself your biases, that you have to come to understand you are perfect. You were made to be perfect. Do you feel perfect? No. Have we been poisoned and brought down to a state where we're not perfect? Yes, for sure. But it's all about your mind and how you react to the stimulus and the catalysts that come your way. It's all a test. We're on planet test Earth. We're in an experiment. We have to treat it like an experiment. So let's make an experiment for ourselves. What are you going to contribute to the new world? I know that I would love to teach art, spiritual type of art, and the geometry and the colors and self-expression to children. And do drawings on crystals, frequency, and vibration. I never have done this before, but I might be able to pull this out. I'm going to show you some of my artwork. And again, we're going back a very long time. This is an installation. This was a partial part of my studio where I glued yarn to paper and then made it wallpaper and floor. And then I put Mylar sheeting and specific lighting to it, which the camera didn't pick up. But when you walked in, you were very overwhelmed by the vibrancy of the yarn and the patterns that I put. And you didn't know where to look. It's very tricky. So that was my senior year. Trying to get a picture. Can't really see. Really hard in this one to see, but the strokes that I use, it's like colors within colors within colors within colors. And the basis behind my artwork is the things that we can't see yet still exist, and that's the light waves that hit objects. The picture, I mean, I have the physical, most of these physical paintings in my house, and you could see it way better than a photo. You can get lost in these, and it's not splattering paint on a canvas, by the way. This might be better. My professors encouraged me to take this idea and geometricize it because they thought it would look cool. And within the paintings itself, there's vibration and frequency that I was working with. That's done in oil. Again, there's not, the pictures really don't do it justice. They really don't do it justice. Trying to see if I have any other ones in here. This is not a good photo. I have this in my foyer when you walk into my house. Hope you could see that. So that's light waves hitting the street at night. And the light bouncing off the water. So yeah, that's not everything, but for what I'm trying to talk about, especially when I get later into the books and go into the color and stuff, that's kind of the idea. So I hope you humored me through my paintings. Sending each and every one of you love and light. I know this is not anything like from me reading off of the book, but again, I know not many people could do it justice to talking about Ra without literally talking and quoting Ra, but I can't do that apparently. And again, I just don't want to get yelled at or in trouble, and I already have lost everything that I can possibly have lost. I'm thankful that I have what I have now. Trust me, I'm very thankful. But over something that I can just redo and encourage everybody to buy this book series. It's incredible. Not easy to read, by the way. It jumps all over the place. The first book especially, it's all over the place. So I try to encapsulate, like the first video, how what's here is paralleling to what's happening now, and just a little background on what Ra is, what his messages are. And yeah, so the next one I'll pick it up from there. And I hope that this is helping people maybe understand it and, grasp a little bit of the concepts from my perception, by the way. That's why I get personal, so that I'm not talking as a Ra. So I hope you enjoyed this insightful synopsis of The Law of One, Book 1, the first portion. Until next time, thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button. It's free. It helps me out. It spreads the algorithm so that more people could see it, which is very much needed right now. And subscribe if you haven't done so already. Bye, guys.